hold those until the end. So housekeeping items on that. Also in the chat function, you're going to see something loaded up that's going to be a takeaway document here soon. So that way you'll have that to think back of the notes, et cetera, that's going on. This is also going so you can be able to go back and review at your time and leisure as well. And also when we get completed, please know that there's going to be about a 15 to 20 minute time frame for an office chat talk. So if you have any questions for the leadership group of career technical education, adult education, we'll have those taken care of as well. So without further ado, for Simulated Workplace, we've got James Coble and Tim Elliott on tap here. A lot of folks ask me all the time, what's it like working with Tim and James? And a lot of people think that they're a dynamic duo, very much like Batman and Robin, and they absolutely are that as well. But they also sometimes remind me whenever you get to see them, maybe not on a team chat or something, and get to watch their personalities work together. They're also very similar to Foghorn Leghorn and the Chicken Hawk, Henry Hawk. If those of you remember those Looney Tune cartoons from your childhood, these guys are an absolute blast, fun to be with, and they do a great job. I'm very thankful in this time of Thanksgiving to have them as co-workers. And I think we should be very thankful that we have two gentlemen like this that are working to help make CTE for our teachers and our students a better program in West Virginia. So without further ado, James and Tim, if you guys want to take over, I will get muted and you guys can go on with what you have to cover today in our Tech Talk with Simulated Workplace.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I appreciate it. I guess I get to be Foghorn Leghorn. That's exciting, right? I'm going to go ahead and share I've shared the PowerPoint inside of the chat box. So if you would take that, you definitely can open it. There's some hyperlinks to the Sway inside of that PowerPoint. Tim, would you like me to share my screen for the PowerPoint, or are you wanting to do that?
Go ahead and share your screen.
All right.
Hey, I got to present.
Well. All right. So Mr. Taylor introduced us, so we don't need to reintroduce the fact that this is going to be a simulated workplace career tech talk. The definition for simulated workplace we obtained from Dr. D'Antoni last year, and I'm just going to reiterate this piece for everyone. I'm sure that everyone on this call, or most everyone on this call, has had some experience with simulated workplace, and so would agree with this definition. Simulated workplace is the creation of an educational environment that emulates the future workplace of its participants. I think that piece is important. This isn't a package deal that that's being handed out that is for everyone just as is, but is something that you are manipulating to fit the workplace of the students. Students are presented with opportunities to master both hard and soft skills while taking on leadership roles necessary to become gainfully employed. I've put this quote at the bottom because I feel like that this tech talk is a little more meaningful, that we have some back and forth. So Tim and I will be encouraging that during this. So your team should feel empowered to speak, share, and contribute, and not afraid to experiment. And I feel like that is also true with this. Mr. Elliott, would you like to go through these?
Absolutely. So one of the nice things is we went ahead and shared the PowerPoint within our chat. So please make sure as we're going through this, I know a lot of times people say, hey, you can click on the link, but where he's just sharing his screen, you cannot do that. So please make sure you guys have the PowerPoint. You can follow along. Within our simulated workplace website, when you actually click on that, it's going to bring up all the different resources and all the different opportunities for your students and your teachers to be able to download and pull everything out. So one of the things as we go through this and we start talking about our blended and virtual simulated workplace and the different models and opportunities that we give the kids, is one of the amazing things is everything is PDF versions for the instructors and or students. And if you guys need a Word version or put it into a different format, please do not hesitate to contact James or myself, and we can actually share those out, whether it needs to be in Word. If you guys cannot edit the PDFs or go through that, we're more than happy to send any of the templates, any of the manuals that are needed. We'll send those to you in any possible way. One of the other things that we truly like is the resource guide. If you want to click on that. Thank you, Mr. Coble. Within the resource guide, you can find almost anything that goes through the process. And as you saw there, one of the things is drug-free. We're going to hit on that a little bit at the end. Donna, we were very fortunate to be able to sit in one of her classes, and it really brought some things to light where we're not in the classroom and we're not out in the field currently, and we don't get to participate and see a lot of the amazing classrooms. So we'll go through some of those, but please remember, as you go through these websites, these are guides. These are like a starting point. James used to get on to me because I would say, this is the basement. He was like, oh, yeah, let's not use the word basement. But he would always say, this is the foundation. This is where it should get started. And your teachers and your students and your community within your career tech or your multi-county center should only elevate, should only scaffold up from what we're giving everybody.
So from the manuals, you can access the instructor's manual, the safety manuals, which I used to have a hard copy that I kept on the desk as you entered the classroom so that people would have access to them. You also have downloadable PDFs of the types of artifacts you should have inside of your classroom, as well as a checklist that I kept on clipboards for our quality control team, safety teams, to look through and to work with. So we see these when we walk in the classroom. A lot of them are updatable. Tim normally goes to the fact that you can take these documents if you have graphic design or if you're just really good with computers and print these and make them your own inside of your classroom, and encourage you to do so. We look for them when we walk into your classroom. I know the one to the left, when we were printing it off, if you laminated it, was a little bit better for keeping the days safe. Tim, you want to piggyback on that? He may be gone.
We've also seen during this time a lot of our different multi-county centers take the opportunity to customize this 6S chart. I'm actually going to share one. One of my instructors from Mid-Ohio Valley, she wanted to emphasize the sanitation of when the students come in and when they actually, look at their working area and how do they go through and clean it before and after. So that way it kind of puts the next student, the next person at ease with that location, that piece of tool, that hardware has been sanitized. So they actually came up with at Mid-Ohio Valley, and I think it's a great thing. They actually came up with this 7S poster, and they added sanitize to theirs. So this is what, when Mr. Coble is saying, you can customize it. Make it your own. Let the students take pride in what they've done. And her student that actually went through, she was doing this from home and staying in communication with us at the State Department. And it was a really good time just to still be able to interact with those individuals and the classroom teachers and the students.
They do give you some guides to what your application and interview process might look like, and these are obviously the foundation piece, and you can take them and manipulate them, working with industry that's local to you, and working with your teachers as professionals and what they've been through in their jobs when they were interviewing. A lot of interviews have turned digital, so I'm sure that some of our sites have moved to a digital platform with this application process, and this was spoke to us the other day, so I don't want to feel like that we're taking, but this is something that when you're setting up your simulated workplaces, some of them have them worked so that it is an application process to get into class. I've always said that I can only control what happens in my own class and work with the students that I'm given with that mindset. So when students are inside of my classroom, when I was teaching, I would go ahead and go through this application process and work with my advisory board in order to establish something that was more formal for them to become in these roles. These are some initial implementation type things that need to be sent out to parents, the random drug testing form, and always working with the students to update and build a policies and procedures manual that's current to you. Tim, anything else you want to go over with the SWAY?
While you're bringing the PowerPoint back up, one of the things that you might take into account is, especially with some of the virtual and blended, you might want to re-examine some of the parent letters on how they're being sent home. I love the picture there, James. How they're
Thanks.
being sent home, and some of the expectations. So a lot of counties have been looking through and going back and reevaluating their internet usage or technology usage policy, and they're having parents and teachers and students refill them out. This might be a great opportunity to go back and look at the letters that are coming out from your simulated workplace, maybe revamping them, adding some of the different things. Just like in ours, we always talk about the virtual background. Mr. Birch always wants to make sure when we're in our meetings, we have this background. So it's a consistency that when you call us, there's an expectations that you're going to see across the board, whether it's Mr. Coble, whether it's Mr. Gilman, or whether it's some of the amazing work that Nathan's doing also.
Ms. Barron also sent out an update for this B&I reviews piece not too long ago, so you should have that document. When we're rolling through this, the vision's placed on there. I normally shared the vision so that our classroom could develop its own vision, and then I would grab from other companies that have been successful with their mission and vision to make a mission and vision for my classroom. And we got to the point where we were doing that on a school-wide basis, so we had a vision and mission for our school. So those documents are definitely available to you through the Simulated Workplace website.
And we'll also plug why James is hitting the next button. On December 17th, Adam and Dave Lemon will also be going over a BNI review on December 17th. So make sure you stay in tuned for that one.
Absolutely. So before you or the pre-planning for your simulated workplaces, many of you have probably already done and established this, but working with your students to develop an ambassadors program, working with your students and your teachers really, so that they're understanding and aware of proper etiquette when working and interacting with businesses inside and outside of your community in virtual and in-person fashion. So kind of having a sit-down discussion with them with what types of things would be positive to show off, what types of things might we want to steer away from when it comes to conversation. Working to create a brand that you're willing and wanting to market, I think that that's quite important when taking on this role. And I've talked with a lot of the directors, administrators about my step in with this role and looking at some of the logos, and a great opportunity to talk about copyright infringement and to talk about professionalism. So something in today's COVID world to make sure that we have, and I'm sure that that a lot of you probably already did this prior to your COVID world, was to create a letterhead. We had a letterhead for our classroom when we were working with businesses that we like to type out to them and work with them with, and I think that's a professional piece that each company could come up with and build in. Become involved with your schools / counties, social media outlets so that you're informed and you're informing. Have email signatures that are appropriate and that are clean and that are business professional. And Tim adds this one to our list, and that's to come up with classroom commercials. So I'll let you go on that one.
So one of the things that we've seen on the social media is the ability to self-market. One of the things that we talk all the time about is when James and I were in the classroom, we weren't the best of promoting ourselves. We weren't out there all the time. And I give Miss Stapleton from Wayne High School major kudos. Her programs, her CT programs, her robotics programs is always in the news. And I think Mr. Coble hit on this earlier. If not, I know he's going to hit on a little bit. Celebrate, even if they're small successes, we need to celebrate them. We need to make sure that they're out there in the social media. We need to be out there in our local newspapers, on our local news channels. So anytime that we can put our students in good light in front of a camera is spectacular. I know Angie and them from the ACE has a great commercial that they run showcasing off their programs. We need to do similar things like that within our own CareerTech facility and within our own environment. And on top of that, and I've used this example before, and I know Rick and I kind of chuckle every time we talk about it, but when we talk about professionalism, it's also a great time to have a conversation with our kids between the difference between having a meeting or a classroom time and when we bring in industry. Because we've all been a part of those sessions when you're having a side conversation trying to figure out, and I've used this example before. Rick and I were in a national meeting, and we were trying to figure out if the vice president of this company was laying in her bed or sitting on a couch. we weren't paying attention, honestly, to what was going on because we were trying to figure out, and it was distracting from the conversation of what was going on. So that goes back to establishing those norms when we're working with. It's a difference between just having interactions within your classrooms and when we start branching out and we start reaching out to other individuals outside of our, of our simulated workplace, and just hitting those because, I think Dr. Lemon talks about State Out West, that this happened to them about 5 or 6 years ago, and they never truly came back to where they end up staying virtual completely. So this virtual, I think, is going to be one of the new norms. So training our students on how to interact and how to live within this virtual environment, I think, is a huge success of what our students leaving CTE will be key and successful for in the future.
I think it's important that when we make these visions and we create these goals and we do them with intent, that we're deliberate and that we're clear, that we're creating visions and sharing them, that we're making sure that people understand them, that we're creating a buy-in around them, and that we're building excitement towards them. We miss that if we make something that's too confusing to keep up with. And I thought that little set of bullets was worth sharing with everybody in the meeting. I think practicing corporate autonomy, I keep checking with Tim as to whether that's the right verbiage for that, but developing a means of checking and correcting internalized issues so that you're not having to deal with every little problem, but you're having an ability to score those types of efforts inside of your classroom. And I love this quote over to the left: if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I know that's not me, it's an African proverb, but it's worth telling, especially when we're talking about setting up these workplaces. So we want to frame simulated workplace activities. One thing when listening to the field is that they're having a lot of frustration with students not attending, or there not being this buy-in piece. And I think that a little bit of that has to do with the fact that we need to become rhythmic with our students and also our instructors, so that they have some expectations and they can anticipate. I know that going from the different environments that we're being required to go from can be difficult, but if we've set a precedence in class and planned for the worst and expected the best, then we can definitely manage those issues. And I know a lot of you are doing very well with managing those issues. I put two of the charts to the right that we used to utilize inside of class because of the type of class that I taught. We did some Gantt charts and some burn down charts. And Tim in this slide has shared with you some hyperlinks where you can create those inside of Microsoft, which I'm sure a lot of you have probably already looked at those. But identifying goals, making deliberate connections between those goals and outcomes. And I think that if there was any part of this slide that was wholly important, is that we need to become, as facilitators, student and teacher sounding boards, so that we're receiving continual feedback, that we can remain on our toes and be able to pivot based off of those changes that we're having to face daily, which we know everyone is trooping through at this point. Tim, anything to add?
And I think that adds some great consistency and stability to your students, because that's one of the things that we talk about all the time is, our students want structure. They truly do. So we have to look at how can we extend that outside of our classroom in this virtual and blended environment, and allow them to continue that on, whether they're in your classroom or whether they're at a home or in a different environment. So a lot of the times just having these and making them flexible is key to these students, because it allows them to understand by December, we're going to cover these CSSs. By January, we're going to cover these CSSs. So it allows the students to have an expectation of where we're pacing, where we are, what we're doing, and what's next on the horizon.
Absolutely. And I think that I've placed it on here, but when we start to set up teams and we start to look at teams, I think that would be the platform that the county that I was with would have went through, along with Schoology. But whatever platform that you're choosing to interact with students, I think that it's important that you set or establish some norms for those types of interactions, that you have ground rules when it comes to types of behaviors that are expected behaviors, some things that you're bringing to the table when you're talking to students in this facilitation process that are non-negotiables, that they have to happen this way, that there shouldn't be any changes. There's always going to be hiccups, and they're going to come at you. So listening to what the issues are is definitely important. And I have to be checked on this too. We always think that we know what's best, but I think in terms of simulated workplace, it's best that we check our egos at the door, that the power lies in the team and the completion of the goal, and not in what's right or wrong at that moment. I've placed on here a Magnetag board and gave in the hyperlink to that Magnetag board. It was something that we were implementing in class when it came to skill sets, and thought I would share this with the group in terms of facilitation, because I think that it's important that in what we're doing with simulated workplace and all of the changes that are happening, that we still remain very task driven. And that we are looking to achieve not only our current goals, but being able to project some short-term goals and be able to accomplish those. And like Tim said before, I think that it's worth celebrating both successes and failures, as long as that failure was driving the needle forward. A lot of you are finding out through practice that certain things aren't working for you and certain things are working for you. As long as you're taking note of that so that you can change and manipulate and fix and pivot, I think that we should celebrate those things as well, that you found this to be an issue and you've moved forward. In teaching the courses that I got to teach, I think that it was important that the student understood that that's something that they didn't want to do, along with a lot of the courses that everyone else has taught in this group. If the student sat in my class and found that was something that they didn't want to do, I still think that that is a learning experience. So setting deadlines, I think that that's something that has to happen, even though in our time you don't want to be afraid to set deadlines, but we also want to be flexible to situations. So that's a big deal. Set countdown and support your team as they move forward. Play by the rules. I think that if we establish a rule within the simulated workplace, or we establish this rule, it needs to be upheld through your policies and procedures manual, just like it would be if we were working through our policies as well. And give your teachers and your students feedback, or allow them to give you feedback towards these rules you've established through simulated workplace. Tim?
And I think he hit it perfect. Is a lot of the times, whether it's positive or negative, a lot of our teachers just need that sounding board. They need to know, what are you doing that's working? What am I doing that's not working? And a lot of times it's, oh, I was thinking about doing that. I'm glad you said something. So why didn't it work? Oh, well, maybe if we try this and this, it will work better. It will, it will allow these students to have a greater educational experience within this, in-person, hybrid, and virtual/remote learning.
And as you started your facilitation of simulated workplaces, you want to make sure that you're having some ongoing pieces. And when you're establishing those pinch points or those catches for you, you make those corrections, and that those corrections are documented. And we want to reiterate that this is a year of flexibility that we're looking at. That there's not a lot of things that are hard and fast, and we want to make sure that we are being as flexible with situational things as we possibly can. I think the hosting of regular corporate meetings, which we heard within our simulated workplace discussions the other day, are a good point for both students and teachers to communicate with administration about concerns that they're having inside of their classroom, so that you can be responsive to those things that are going on inside the simulated workplaces. That'll help to identify your stress points, keep you connected with things that the students are finding and the teachers are finding that need to be corrected. And I encourage that during some of those meetings, or at least quarterly meetings, we would have incorporated our advisory board as well. So getting some of that business and industry feedback for what they're doing, which Tim and myself have been in contact with a couple companies when making some guidance documents, where they have had to interact inside of this environment as well. And seeing that kind of overlap was important to making some of the decisions that have been made. remember that sometimes problems require certain skill sets, and that's why I placed that on there. It might not be upheld within your school, but I'm sure that someone has that skill set, and you could bring that skill set in virtually, as well as in person when we're back and allowed to do that. Tim?
And this is also something that James will say from time to time that's great about CTE is we work together as a community within our teachers, within our structures. And this is a great time that if you're not good with teams, this is a great time to reach across to maybe one of your other instructors that is utilizing it on a day-to-day. Or one of the things that we talk about all the time is setting up virtual backgrounds. This is a great time to work with some of our graphics programs or some of our multimedia publications, to work with them to actually be able to create backgrounds for all of our different, and that kills two birds with one stone. A, it helps your simulated workplace, and B, it gives our students, our graphic design students, a real world problem to work on and to give you a solution. So it's allowing them to actually do some of the items that they're going to be creating in this up and coming new world. I mean, our communication office at the department did an amazing job on this new background that we have, that we utilize. So these are things that our students in the future are going to have the skills to truly use when they come out of our programs. So this allows that interaction of real world experience, and it meets something for your simulated workplace needs.
Right. My simulated workplace wouldn't have been what it was without the carpentry nearby. I think that I was positioned very well, and intentionally positioned, Mr. Birch, between an industrial electric class, an automotive class, and a carpentry class that were and a welding class that were very helpful in working to engage that program and make it the program that it is. So please, yes, utilize your other CTE programs inside. Don't feel like that they're siloed. And I think that that's an important part of this regular corporate meeting, is to have them talk and discuss and to throw out things that are positive inside that they're working with, strategies that they're finding that are successful, and also ones that they're having as setbacks. Because if you put setbacks on the table and they're out there and you're transparent with what your struggle points are, then we can find ways to find solutions for them and find the people that can help with those solutions. And we put this up at the end, but we've been hitting it throughout. I think that this is a year of we need to look at these small successes, even the small successes or the greatest success. Sometimes we just reward the things that are noteworthy because they were most impactful. But I think that this year all the small successes are also great successes. So let's try to reward it, even mistakes that move us towards goals. Something sitting under different administrations that have happened, like having a boss's day or a management day, having a team members day, community service award, company competitions, inter-school competitions, and they can be virtual. They are virtual design challenges, virtual challenges that you can facilitate inside of your programs, where you don't have to have different populations of students interacting. Those can still take place, but we have to be creative and we have to be understanding of what's going on in the situation that we're living in. Certifications that have been achieved and signings that have happened are also worth noting on there. Tim?
I think you hit it perfect. I mean, it's one of those that we just need to celebrate everything that's going on within this school year within our students, letting everybody know some of the great successes that are going on. I think I give Deanna's teachers some major credit on this. If you walk up and down the hallways, you always would see the students Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint on bulletin boards out front. You would see it on their social media. I think they do an amazing job at that. And we just need to make sure this year that we're really working with those students. And I think the next slide really hits on what we're talking about. And we were very fortunate Tuesday to be in a meeting that Donna led that kind of made James and myself truly think about what's going on this year and some of the different things. And I don't think I'm sharing anything I'm not allowed to, Donna. So if I am, just mute me. But we need to make sure that we still are doing drug testing. And maybe if we're not at the opportunity to where the students are coming in to give the drug testing, I think the students still need to have the out of, hey, I can't do that because when we go back to school next week, there's a possibility they're going to drug test me. We can't. I think James talks about it all the times in our training. He's had some of his students that's the excuse when they go out on Friday night. Coble might drug test me on Monday or Tuesday, man. I can't. I can't take that. I can't do that. So we really have to take that into the equation this year, that we still have to give those opportunities to the students, whether it's hybrid or virtual, that, hey, we could go back to school at any point and they're going to drug test me. And this isn't, like we say all the time, this isn't an I got you, especially in a year like this year. It's a you need somebody to talk to, because they might not have that opportunity every day to see James's beautiful face as they're going into a project lead the way classroom, or they might not have the opportunity to see a Larry Harshberger in a computer science, or a Misty at a graphic design. That, it's this, they don't have that everyday interaction. So we have to remember that's one of the greatest resources I think that Simulated Workplace truly brought outside of the organizational skills, is that opportunity to open up dialogue with our students.
These digital platforms are supposed to help and assist us in being more flexible and adaptive to what's going on. But I'm putting my parent brain on for just a second. I want to make sure that the students that are living inside of my classroom understand how I expect work to be turned in and be consistent with that, where to go for the work that I am posting or the assignments that I'm posting, and what's expected and is norm for them when it comes to classroom interactions, so that they are there. And we've been looking at classrooms that do 30-minute meetings daily, and I think that those are still awesome to do. Some of you have some amazing strategies to keep students engaged, and I think right now would be a time that they would need that consistency. I think if I was in the classroom, we were talking about it the other day, having someone that's willing to sit and start a meeting inside of class, so I'm not double dipping on the issue. The same conversation went on with a team out of Oklahoma. They said that they have an IT person that will start a meeting, which this is also something Clinton had suggested or talked about doing, or has happened, or was happening inside of certain counties, where they had the IT person turn on their laptops and kind of follow through the teacher's lecture and make sure that was in some way posted for those students on a daily, so it was like they were in class, so they could attend live or watch that virtually. Because as teachers, it's hard to recreate that that organic presentation that you've built up to, and that back and forth that you normally have with students. So having that live on that first shot is kind of a big deal, and posting that for them to see. And I'm sure some of you are doing that. So Tim, at the end of our meeting, we wanted to make sure that we gave time for our participants to unmute and to share and to talk and to vent, because I think at this time we probably need some of that. Would you like to go ahead and get that started?
Absolutely. So that has concluded our presentation portion. And as always, the last 30 minutes of this hour long, and we want to be respectful of your time, is the opportunity for everybody to kind of share, talk to our group, our amazing group of coordinators, and kind of go through some of the processes. I know, like I said, I called on Donna earlier, but Matt Miller, I know you have one of your instructors that is doing a very unique way of instructing. Every day he teaches through Teams. So even if the students are in his classroom or virtual, he always has them sign into Teams, they record it, and that's how they interact. So when they ask questions, it's on their recording. It's going back to that not duplicating services. It's the same principle. So if any of our coordinators, or not coordinators, if any of the admins want to unmute, let's talk about some of the different things, some of the amazing things that we're seeing virtually. We'd love to get back to the point when we get to see this stuff in person, but all of this right now is virtual. So please make sure you unmute, and I know Nathan will unmute and kind of guide us through this process. Thank you. Don't everybody unmute at one time, or Nathan will start handpicking and calling people out.
I don't know that I'm going to do that, but just glancing here in terms of the chat bar, I know Tim and Veronica Barron have uploaded several of the documents, and again, James, the PowerPoint that you all use today. So anything that they went over there informational wise that you want to be able to keep track of there, it's available. And also, in case you may have overlooked it, Dr. Dave here in our office, when you were talking about the importance of being able to meet virtually and utilizing Teams to still be able to have some of the simulated workplace meetings, whether it's within your specific classroom or company, or where you're looking at across company with building administration. This data is very telling. Bill Gates stated this week that 30% of days in the office will go away in the pandemic aftermath, and 50% of business travel will also decline as people are being able to identify ways to utilize technology to overcome the way things have always been done. So again, Dave, thanks for adding that in there. So nothing in the chat. Any questions that you may have for James or Tim from this presentation in terms of simulated workplace, or specifically being able to manage and operate in a simulated workplace when you're looking at having remote learning or hybrid type schedules? Or maybe what are some things that you were doing in the field that you see your instructors are doing that have been impactful for students and being able to operate in this type of a school year environment that we're seeing?
Hey, Nathan, this is Matt Miller. How are you?
Hey, Matt, doing great, buddy. How about yourself?
Doing real good. Hey, I just want to thank Tim for mentioning about one of our instructors and what what he's doing. He started from day one with his team, trying to teach the same lesson 3 different times. The cool thing about what he did by starting from day one is we've been out quite a few days, and what he did at the beginning, from starting from day one, has had a huge impact on his students. He has it's like 100% participation. It's unreal, the involvement of these kids. So I just wanted to let everybody know that there are a lot of good things going on. Got to get it in place prior to, and I see that we're going to drag this out for a little while, I believe.
Yeah, well, Matt, thank you for kind of sharing some more detail about how your instructor set that up, and the more specifically how responsive the students have been to the efforts of that instructor.
Hi there. It's Donna. I appreciate your emphasis on student mental health. It's sometimes something we get so busy with the nuts and bolts of what we're doing that we forget, as well as our teacher socio-emotional health that's helped sustain us. Because what we're finding is the students that are not participating, often there are now underlying issues. And those team meetings that are built into simulated workplace are becoming a critical tool for us to be able to identify which students are not coping well. Because often their behavior in response, we focus more on their behavior rather than on the symptom. So simulated workplace teams have really helped us as far as student mental health checks. And as an administrator, I think we also have to remember to do that. Some of them are doing great and some of them are not doing so well. But those team meetings, I think the same concept of simulated workplace also, we now have to apply that with our teachers just to make sure they're okay.
Absolutely, Donna. Thank you for sharing that. And a question just popped up in the chat real quick. John Michael asked, with the pandemic, are the B&I reviews that are done by outside advisory councils still mandated? And that was answered in the chat by Clinton Birch, not during COVID. So if any of you were wondering about having your outside advisory councils doing those B&I reviews, not at this time are those mandated or required. Anyone else with some examples of how you're utilizing simulated workplace, how you're utilizing teams to be able to meet with students, utilize those technology functions to still be able to operate at a high level with simulated workplace? And Donna, thank you so much for what you were addressing there with student mental health. And at the same time, this is very difficult for adults as well. So it's a very trying time. People were we're designed and created to be social and be with other people. So it's a very tough time for, everyone involved, especially educators, when you look at how much you're around people during the school year, and not having that opportunity basically since March is very trying for students and faculty as well. Anyone else? If not, just want to direct you over then to the chat. Veronica Barron just posted a link there for a survey. It'll take just a few moments, 4 or 5 questions there. Please know that we also have, starting now at the finish and completion of this meeting, we have our CTE and Adult Ed leadership team available for office chat hours. So that should be Clinton, Adam, Rick, and Mindy. So if you have any questions specifically with them, office chat's getting ready to start here any second. And make sure to have on your calendars December 17th will be our next Tech Talk day, 9:30 a.m. Adult Ed. That's going to be Adult Ed programming, finances, and monitoring that Amy Bogus and Cindy Sundstrom will be going over. And at 10 a.m. B&I reviews with Adam Canner and Dave Lemon. So that's coming up next month. And thank you all again for your time. James and Tim, wonderful job highlighting some of the things of simulated workplace and being able to highlight and identify a lot of what our students and teachers are doing to be able to be successful with simulated workplace during a COVID-19 school year. And again, we're going to go ahead, the recording